Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of my yarn podcast. This past week I've finished some things, I've been making some things, I've been sewing actually, which is one of my least favorite crafts, but I did make some things that I think they're quite exciting. So without further ado, I'd love to show you them. This time, because the things I've actually sewn are some project bags, I think the best way to go about this is I will first show you the things that I have finished. I have two completely finished objects, knitting wise, and then after that I will start showing you basically my whole collection of project bags, so also the ones you've already seen, because they are all currently occupied by WIP. So I will both show you the new project bags and I will just walk you through all the project bags and what's in them, because I have one thing that for me at least was very exciting and I'm excited to show you as well. So my first finished objects are these little ruffle socks. Like I said last time, I was making the ruffle socks from Petite Knit. I have finished my pair. You can see here the actual little ruffle. I will give you a little close-up of them as well. I think they're really cute. They turned out very nice. I'll show you a picture of me wearing them as well. So what I usually do with stuff like this, especially because as soon as I saw the pattern and I started making them, I was quite sure that this would be one of those projects where I don't just want to make one version of them. So I keep texting everybody like, I need to make 500 ruffle socks now. Oh no. I don't think it's quite that dire, but I am excited to make more. One of my whips is actually the next pair of ruffle socks as well. So my first pair, and after finishing them and after wear testing them, I have a couple of little adjustments I want to make to the pattern. So my first adjustment that I talked about last time that I have already made is in the original pattern. I'm pretty sure that Petite Knit uses short row way to construct the heel. I am familiar with it, but it's not my favorite way because I prefer to do a heel flap and gusset decrease, because that gives you this lovely little textured ribbing at the heel where the shoe rubs against the sock the most. So it's always a good idea to make those parts like the heel and the toes as strong as you possibly can. But after making them, it's always kind of a gamble because especially with patterns made by women for women, I'm a little bit taller than the average woman. I am a good 5'11", close to 6 feet tall, which also means my feet are a bit bigger than your average woman. So with stuff like the amount of rows to do before you go into the heel flap and the amount of rows you use for the folded over edge, I've decided to play around with that a little bit. So for my next pair of socks, I am actually doing, because I kind of overestimated it for these, so I think I actually did a little bit too many rows between the end of the folded over edge and where I go into the heel flap. As you can see in the picture of me wearing them as well, I think the ruffle sits up a little bit high, so I would like to decrease that a little bit, but I would like to increase the folded over edge a little bit. So I am decreasing this part by 5 rows for my next pair, and I'm increasing the amount of rows for the folded over edge by 2 rows. So we'll see how that goes, and after those are finished, I'll show them to you as well. And after I finish those, I think I should be able to land on my perfect recipe for these basically. And as I've mentioned before, so the way I make these is I use these little Chowgu shorty needles. I really like using them. I think for me that works really well. Sometimes it becomes a little bit tough on my hands, but I usually compensate for that by just not knitting socks all day every day. Sometimes especially when I'm doing gift knits, it starts to become a little bit hard to not do that, but I tend to be pretty good at having a few different projects on the needles so that I can rotate between them and not having all of them be socks. And one of the things, so the way I finish the toe is I will knit the amount of rounds that I need for the foot part, and then I transfer half the amount of stitches on one little DPN and then the other half on another DPN, and then I use a third DPN to kind of do the toe decreases until I end up with only 4 stitches per needle. Then I Kitchener stitch those together. That gives me kind of this shape for the toes. For me that's fine, my feet are kind of wide and this just, I don't know, this suits me fine I think. And one of the things that I think is very important, because this part where I am doing those decreases and where like the one set of stitches is on the one DPN and the other stitches is on the other, in between those two where you're doing the decreases, I notice that it often still is a little bit gappy. So for me, one of the most important things to do when I finish a pair of socks is I will always kind of zigzag my thread after I do the Kitchener stitch and I'm just left with a closed sock. I will use this little guy and I will just zigzag my thread along that part to fortify it and to make sure there are no gaps left. I think for me that's a really good way to kind of finish up my socks. That makes them nice and sturdy. You can also feel there's like a little bit of extra squish here. I think for me right now in my sock knitting journey, I have knit quite a few pairs of socks for other people as well. I have a lot of pairs of socks for me as well, and I've seriously started knitting socks sometime like over 2 years ago is when I seriously started teaching myself. And thus far, besides the one pair of socks that I made, I think I made 2 pairs of socks before I quite understood the importance of having some nylon in your socks. So I tried making socks without sock yarn basically. So I think besides those pairs of socks, thus far none of my socks have worn through. I have not had to go back in yet to refortify them. All of them I wash in the washing machine on a wool cycle with wool detergent and no fabric softener. And I wear my woolen socks, I wear them all year actually. Not even just when it's colder out, I wear them in the summer as well. That's when I make the little ankle ankle socks, and yeah, I really enjoy it. This is one of the things that I taught myself how to knit that I think I enjoy the most. I wear them the most often and I have the most benefit of. So if you had been thinking about getting into knitting, I don't think you should start with knitting socks, but it can be a lovely goal to kind of work towards, because it's definitely one of the things I've been able to just kind of knit endlessly for myself. Other people also really enjoy when I give them a pair of socks, as they should. And I just love it. I just love being able to do different things with sock knitting as well. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's a lot of creativity that can be involved with it. I have not really tried so many different stitch patterns for socks. I usually do just a variation of just a plain vanilla sock. I think it's fine. I do have that book, 52 Weeks of Socks, and I eventually want to get around to making some of those as well. But for now, because I love a colorful yarn, a variegated yarn, and as I said before, I don't think a complicated stitch pattern really lends itself that well to showcase a complement or to showcase a more complicated stitch pattern. So maybe this cold season I'll get around to doing some more of that, but for now, Ruffle Socks it is, Ruffle Socks it will be, and I'm so excited. I definitely want to make some more pairs of socks, maybe some for other people as well. Setting up the stitches is a beast, because you set up, you cast on over 200 stitches, at least for my size, and making sure that those don't slip from the needles, especially with the little shorty needles that I cast them onto. It's a beast, but it's, in my opinion, really worth it, because I think these are so adorable and I can't wait to knit more. Tea break. Ah, it's gone cold. Oh no. Alright, for my next finished object, I'm super excited about this one. I've worn it already. It is my Ballet Cardigan. I'll just show a picture here as well, because it's going to be kind of hard to show it like this, but I'll give you a quick impression here. So this is all made into a DK from Life in the Long Grass. It is a super wash, so when I was making the sleeves, I wanted to just, so like I said, I'm a tall gal. I often have to be careful that I don't follow patterns too strictly, especially for things like sleeve lengths. I really have to make sure that I make them long enough for me, because everything about me is long, so my arms are long as well. So for this one, I did not want a bracelet length sleeve. I did not want a 3/4 sleeve. I didn't want it right at the wrist bone. I wanted over the wrist bone even. So I really tried to make very, very sure that I was making these sleeves long enough. But because it is a super wash, when I started blocking it, I was a little bit worried that the sleeves were going to stretch out too much maybe. Luckily they didn't, they held their shape. Also the way I was blocking it, I was trying to be careful to not stretch it in any way, shape or form. The only reason I blocked it is that I just wanted to make sure that, especially for things like the decreases in the sleeves, I wanted the stitches to relax a little bit into themselves. I did not want it to become bigger or stretch out in any way. I just wanted to have all these stitches kind of just like relax and look nice and uniform. So what are my final thoughts on this? I am really happy I made this. It is lovely, it is nice and warm, it is nice and squishy. It was a different experience for me knitting this in a DK. I will definitely be trying to do some more DK knits and try and not just commit myself to knitting with fingering weight yarn all the time, especially one of the things I'm currently working on. I am happy I'm doing it in this particular fingering weight yarn, but I am also cursing myself because it is taking forever and it involves a lot of purling as well, and purling flat with fingering weight yarn is just kind of a beast. I'm happy to do it because the project is going to turn out amazing, but curses. This on the other hand was lovely. The mohair combined with the undercover otter yarn in the dead-eyed color, lovely, perfect choice. It just, for me, doing a color choice like this is what kind of elevates the thing I'm making. So when you just make something perfect, and when you make it yourself, sometimes, like, my goal is not to make something that looks like I could have bought it. I want something funky, I want something that is exactly the way I want it to be, and not just in the way that it fits, but in the way that's just like the whole vibe of the garment basically. So if I would have made this with everything just the same color, or maybe a non-variegated yarn, that would have been lovely, but that would not have been worthwhile for me to knit it, in my opinion, because then I could have also bought something that looks quite similar and be done with it. But because I am taking the time and the money to actually make something for myself, then I want it to be the absolute most amazing thing that I truly love. So for me, adding this fluorescent green to this lovely pink variegated yarn was the thing that took it for me from just like, yeah, sure, I really like this and maybe I want to see if I can knit it, to something that made me really excited to be working on it. And I think it worked out perfectly, especially like the ones on the sleeves as well. Doing all these I-cords, I was worried about that before I started this project, because I feel like I always kind of hear people talking about doing I-cords, that they don't like it, it's too involved, it's too repetitive, I don't know. I really like knitting. Knitting, in my opinion, is quite repetitive. That's part of what I like about it. It is, for me, a very meditative thing to be doing. And doing the I-cords was just more of the same for me. I kind of just enjoyed how you're just working back and forth for the longer I-cords without turning. Made me feel like I was a little typewriter just churning out this I-cord. I don't know if that quite makes sense. I think it makes a little bit of sense. It's fine. And it was just really nice. Okay, one of my few gripes with this pattern, I'm pretty sure I made these straps as long as the pattern suggested that I should. And when I look at the picture of the pattern, it looks like she only ties it around her waist once. I don't know if mine stretched a bunch. Okay, wait, let me actually measure them. Because my straps go around my waist 3 times before I can tie them. which that was, oh no, I did probably make them too long. No, actually, they're only, no, I take it back. They are only 10 to 20 centimeters longer than the pattern suggests, and that does not explain why I need to tie them around my waist 3 times. I'm pretty sure I did it for my size as well. Like I looked specifically, I made the size small, and I also made the straps for the size small, but again, they go around my waist 3 times. I think it, because I'm using a contrasting color, that does help just showcase kind of the funkiness of the garment more. So I'm not mad about it. I'm also not mad about the amount of time I spent doing the I-cords, because like I said, I just kind of enjoyed it. When I first tried it on though, and when I was first looking at these straps, I was thinking to myself, like, what the hell happened here? Why are they so stupidly long? Also, it does make the garment a little bit harder to store because I'm just not sure what to do with these damn straps. One of the things I absolutely changed about this pattern that I didn't agree with in the pattern notes is the way, so this is a raglan top-down construction, which for me was the first time doing that while knitting. So that was actually really exciting. So at some point you knit it top down and then you split for the sleeves, and then you, in my case, I put the sleeves on a little bit of barber cord, which worked out really well. It made it super duper easy to pick up the stitches again. And then I knit the sleeves with my little shorties again in the same size as for the rest of the body. I think for the next time, because I don't know if you can tell, maybe this is more something I can tell, but, and I am aware that this is kind of a thing that tends to happen, but doing the body in the flat, knitting these body pieces flat on my 4mm needles and then knitting this in the round on my little 4mm needles, there's always kind of a difference in gauge. So I think I should go find some of those little shorty needles in half sizes as well, so that next time I make something like this, I think I'll try to go up half a size for when I am doing the sleeves and the round. That is not the thing I've changed about this pattern though. The only thing that I changed was the pattern called you to, when you pick up the sleeves again, instead of so you have where you split for the sleeves, those are on the barber cord, so you pick those up, and then the pattern called you to cast on 8 stitches for the underarm part. But I remembered that I also casted on 8 stitches to compensate here for the body part. So there were basically 8 stitches just waiting here for when I knit that body part to be picked up. So in my opinion, it didn't make a ton of sense to cast on 8 stitches there instead of picking them up. So I picked them up, and then I was left with 2 little holes over here. You still see this one a little bit, but it doesn't bother me at all. So instead of casting them on, I picked them up, and I think that makes this look way more cohesive and like it just flows nicer. So I'm happy I did that. And then I just kind of wove some of the thread that was left from picking up the stitches again. I just used that to kind of compensate for the little holes there. Again, that one is a little bit bigger, that's fine though. Let's look at the one on the other side. Yeah, I think this looks fine. I think I am more happy with this than I would have been otherwise. So that's the only thing I truly changed about the pattern, and using the contrasting color, of course. But I'm really happy with this. I've worn it. It's really nice. It fits me perfectly. I am sometimes a little bit unsure about what my size is, and especially with starting to knit my own garments as well. When I made the Petite Knit Sonia sweater, that sweater is a beast on me. It is so large. I think it fits me like an extra large or something, whereas I know 100% certain that I cast it on and I tried to knit at least the size medium. So I think maybe my gauge is just a tad looser than usually the pattern calls for. So I started leaning towards making size small more and more when I'm knitting my own stuff, and I think it's been fitting me a lot better actually. Whereas when I am shopping just in regular stores and stuff, which I've been doing less and less and less, especially now that I've started sewing more as well. I usually tend to go for a medium, but that's also like I often need to compensate for things. So I'm not necessarily very broad, but I am very tall and my shoulders are a little bit broad. So it's hard to find clothing that fits you the way it's supposed to fit for all the different body parts that it's trying to cover. Which again is one of the reasons I've been enjoying making more of my own clothing, because I know my body and I'm starting to know my body better and better, also in terms of like sizing for knitting and sewing, so that way I can just compensate myself and make garments that actually fit me appropriately everywhere. So that's been lovely. So let's get into the whips now. So I think I'll go through the project bags you have seen before first, and then I'll show you the new project bags. So you've seen this one. I hope you love this one. I know I love this one. So I have not mentioned this whip before because I was kind of trying to ignore it in the worst way possible, which means that this whip had just been laying on my kitchen table for the longest time, which is not a good practice, and also kind of feels like I'm trying to invite the moths to dinner. So now that I have a couple more project bags, I decided to grant this one the privilege of actually being in one of them. I hope it's enjoying the privilege. So this is a pair of leg warmers that I've been trying to make. I have kind of lost some of my enthusiasm for it. It's been on my kitchen table, so I see it every time I have a meal, and I have been studiously ignoring it. Not the best approach. So now it lives in this lovely project bag. It's also tangled up in it, wonderful. So I have been told before that I knit stuff like this, where it's just a small in the round thing that I knitted in a weird way, because this is the outside, and then I basically knit it like this. I knit it looking into it, and this is actually the outside. So as you can see, these are the purling stitches, these are the knit stitches, and they are on the inside. I like doing it like that. Oh no, the project bag. I like doing it like that. I can't imagine doing it the opposite way. Also, especially when I'm doing colorwork stuff on socks and little sleeves like this. To me, it would be really hellish to do that the other way around, because this way I can keep track of all my floats and all the threads very easily. Otherwise, I don't know if they would have to go in there. I don't know. I just like doing it like this. No color work for this one though, besides a little bit of color blocking. So I'm kind of hoping that by putting it in this project bag and putting it in my little army of project bags over here, I will actually finish them at some point, because as I said, the weather is starting to get cooler. So I do think rather soon-ish I will start to benefit from wearing woolen leg warmers to ballet class. For me, even though I have pink hair, for me this is not something I am making with the intent of wearing out and about on a daily basis. I am making this specifically with the intent of wearing it to ballet class. I love experimenting with funky little fits to ballet class, and this would be, in my opinion, a lovely and also a nice and warm addition to that ensemble. So in this project bag currently, there is really not that much to show you, so I'll keep it very briefly. This is kind of like my pile of shame at the moment. I saw this thing about people knitting their own bras, and as a gal that does not like wearing bras, that hates the elastic, hates to be pinched by it like that, the idea of, and does like knitting and yarn and wool, the idea of knitting your bra seemed very enticing, but currently I'm very much struggling with this, and I make no promises of ever finishing this. I'll show you a picture of what it's supposed to look like. It's the everyday bra from Naked Knit. The pattern looks lovely. The projects that I've been seeing on Ravelry, everything looks wonderful. I would love to be able to join the club of knitted bra wearers, but I don't know if the time is here for that. For now, it's going to live in this project bag, and we'll see if and when I get around to it again. It's not going to be anytime very soon, that's for certain. Now this project bag houses something that I am very happy to be knitting on currently. I will pull it out for you. I really hope you can tell the difference from when I showed it last week and when I'm showing it to you currently, because I've been knitting on this quite a bunch. So I really hope you can see that it grew. This is my little capelet that I'm working on with this lovely yarn from Black Elephant Dyers in the UK. It is so precious, it is so beautiful. I have reread the pattern, I have kind of studied what it seems like I've done on this before, and I have just started knitting on it again. I have knitted, I think, at least 30 to 40 rounds or passes on it, so I really hope you can tell that it's bigger than last time when I showed you. I'm really excited to continue on this. I have exchanged the stitch markers that were on there previously for ones that I like better, and I'm really excited to continue on this. I think these needles are even a little bit smaller than 3mm. I think they might be a 2.75 or something like that. I think it's just like a smidge under 3mm. Purling on this flat with these tiny needles and also with the seed stitch edging and everything. It's been a little bit of a beast. It is definitely something I can't do when I'm trying to watch a show where I have to read the subtitles. The purling part, at least. The knitting part is fine, but that has been a little bit of a struggle. I'm still really enjoying this though. I think it's going to be super duper cute and really lovely. The collar will be folded over like this. I'm not yet sure if I'm going to put a button on it or if I'm going to leave it buttonless and use one of my silver brooches for it. I think that could be really cute as well, but before I get carried away with that, I need to finish the darn thing first. What I have done for you today though is I have pulled out my other versions of this pattern that I have made. So last year I made 2 of them. This was my first one. This was the one that I made also the most just like true to pattern. I think I was pretty close to the gauge. I put a button on it. I made a size that seemed to make sense for me. There was just like not that much experimentation going on with this. I think I maybe made the collar just a little bit too short though. It's really cute. I really enjoy it. I think the yarn is really nice. I combined a green variegated yarn with a black yarn. I really like wearing this when it's colder. It is a little bit big for me though. I will quickly pop it on. I think part of why it is a little bit big for me was maybe to do because I was wearing this once when I got caught in a horrific downpour, and I think I tried to use it a little bit also to cover up my head because I was wearing something without a hood, so it both got drenched and stretched that day, which was very unfortunate. We all lived though, real fine. When I'm wearing it like this and when I place it kind of carefully, it fits fine, but I think ideally, because it would be a little bit weird to still wear a scarf like this. I basically want this to function as a scarf, so I wanted to keep my neck warm and I wanted to keep my shoulders warm as well. So what I would ideally want from something like this is for it to sit higher, closer to the neck and like more closed. That is not what this does. It still looks really nice, but it's definitely more something that will only keep my shoulders warm and my neck not really, which is fine. I still really like this. I think it's a really good addition when you're feeling a little bit colder. I think I can still add a little scarf to it, but it's a little finicky. So last year when I started to get more into pink, I picked up this lovely yarn and knitted myself this scrumptious looking thing. I think it's so cute. This button is really cute as well. I'm pretty sure it's a stone that's been carved to look like this little flower, and I added this little pearl to it. This yarn is a lot thicker though than the other yarn, so not as much chance for stretching. I'll quickly pop this one on as well. it's a lot, just like the weight of this thing is a lot heftier as well. I finished this right as it was starting to get a bit warmer, so I have actually not had that many chances to wear this yet. Again, I tried to make it, I think I made a smaller size this time, and maybe you can see, I think it sits up a little bit higher, but it's still not quite as high as I would like it to be, so I'm hoping that the one I'm making currently will do a little bit more of that. I also think that's just not really what the pattern is trying to do, so maybe I'm also just trying to force these things into doing something for me that they're just not kind of really meant to be doing. That's just fine. I'm just experimenting, I'm just having fun. I really like this. This is so nice and squishy. This feels super lovely and squishy. It feels like you're just, I don't know, like you're being slightly hugged by your garment, which I think is really nice. I really enjoy it. I think this is, yeah, just absolutely divine. And I'm really happy I made it, and I can't wait to wear it again. Sometimes I'm a little bit unsure because I feel like the two color palettes that I really lean towards kind of clash. So in summer, I really tend to like the bright pinks. I like combining it with a bright yellow or a more muted yellow, but like lots of pinks and purples. And then when it starts becoming colder, I all of a sudden start leaning very heavily towards deep reds, dark greens, more rust and terracotta colors. And as you currently can see, I am sometimes a little bit unsure about how to combine those different aesthetics. I'm also just trying to have fun, so I think it's all fine in the end. But I sometimes don't really know how to wear something this color or this color with stuff that is more this type of color palette. But anyway, these are super nice. I really enjoy them. It's for me definitely something I will wear out the house, but I really enjoy wearing it in the house as well, because it's just a lovely warm addition to an outfit if you're just still feeling a little bit chilly. Alright, those were the project bags you already know. Now let's get into the newer project bags. So this one. This one is so cute. I made these little charms for it as well, which I think are also adorable. So, and on the inside, it's a lovely pink gingham. So what you are currently looking at are two different fabrics I have layered here, which I have layered this kind of gauzy tulle type fabric with the stars over this. It might be kind of like a lame type of fabric, the pink one that's underneath this. And then there is also a layer of interfacing that did not have any way to iron it to adhere to the fabric I was trying to adhere it to. So apparently I'm a glutton for punishment, because that was hellish to work with. I don't think I should do this ever again. Now currently I am also still spotting a little piece where I missed the tulle fabric and it is still not properly attached to the rest of the bag. I have already noticed multiple of these spots, so I have Frankensteined this bag together a little bit, I'm afraid. I don't know how well you can see this. I am kind of hoping you can't see it too well, actually, because when I turned that bag inside out for the first time, I just noticed that the tulle fabric, I just hadn't caught it with the sewing machine in a bunch of places, so I just started zigzag stitching like my life was depending on it to kind of salvage this. I think I did mostly. I think it will be still functional, it will be fine, but gosh darn it, that was not a fun sewing experience. Layering fabrics like that, I think the effect is really cute. I hope you can kind of see it shimmering in the sunlight here, but I will not be attempting to do this again very soon. The result is cute, but it has cost me dearly mentally. Now what is inside of this bag is the next version of my little Ruffle Socks. So here in this pattern, as you can see, again, I'm knitting it according to a lot of people inside out, but again, that is the way I prefer it. So the ruffle is hidden in here. I'll pop it out just a little bit. So I don't know if you will be able to tell the difference, but for this one, this folded over edge is just slightly longer, and this part between the folded over edge and the heel is slightly shorter. We'll see how that goes. This sock yarn is that Undercover Otter sock yarn with the little neon splooshes on there. This is about as neutral as I'll get in my knitting. And I was just seeing all the petite knit sock pattern pictures. Try saying that 3 times fast. And her socks were knitted in this lovely off-white kind of creamy color. I don't want to do again, this is as close as I'll get to that, and I think I'm really happy with my choice. The little neon splooshes are quite subtle, and I think it's really cute, and because they are just little socks, they won't take up that much yarn, so I will still be able to use this for other knitting endeavors that are maybe more on the colorwork side of things. Also, those other socks that I showed you, those were knitted in the Sauerball Crazy yarn. That's a 2-ply. This is a 4-ply. The 4-ply yarn, even though it will result in a sturdier and squishier sock, so that is going to be lovely. Casting on over 400 stitches with a 4-ply, and casting on like that means that you're always kind of twisting the yarn, or at least I am. So that means that the yarn is trying to untwist on itself, which means that the stitches that you are casting on are trying to twist in on themselves in a way. So I am knitting them. I am casting on for this type of sock, and I know that I do this to myself, but this is for me, after I get past the ruffle part, the most comfortable way of knitting them. So I cast on over 200 stitches with this lovely 4-ply yarn on these needles that are then trying to twist in on themselves, that I have to untwist in order to make an untwisted row of stitches when I start knitting in the round again. That was dreadful. That was absolutely dreadful. Did not enjoy that. 10 out of 10. Will be doing it again because I have to make the second sock, of course. I managed to do it in the end, but I think it was maybe also a little bit later at night and I was just starting to get a little bit frustrated. So I was not having the best time with that part of the sock. All the rest of the sock is completely fine, and it's actually a little bit nicer to be knitting with a 4-ply. But that part, the casting on and then doing all the decreases, that was terrible. Even though it was terrible, apparently I do recommend it because the result, I think, is going to be scrumptious, and I'm really excited for it. As I said, not excited for doing it again though. We'll be doing it again. Gotta get that second sock out of here. Next up, I have made this. Let me just hide what is in there a little bit. Next up, this is the second project bag that I made. Sometimes I will just get this urge to do a specific craft and just immerse myself into it all day. Some time ago I got that urge and I started lino cutting. I've made a couple of them. One of them was this little fish guy, so I printed some of them all in the same day and making 2 different lino cuts as well. It was kind of a wild day, it's fine. So I still have a bunch of these patches laying around, so I decided that putting one of them on one of these project bags would be fun. So that's what I decided to do. The rest of it is just like this little cotton gingham. Cotton is definitely the nicest type of fabric to be sewing these project bags out of, much better than any type of tulle. Dear Lord, I hope I won't be doing that again sometime soon. I did make a mistake with this project bag, but it actually resulted in a lovely way of fixing it, because when I had already sewn the front and the back together, and I think I was in the process of sewing the lining into it as well, I looked and I noticed all of a sudden that for the back side of it, I had placed it wrong side up. So what that means in this case is that there's a seam here. That seam should be on the inside and the right side should be facing up here so that it matches this side. I had done it the wrong side up. So these two sides didn't match. This one had the right side up as they were already attached together. This one had the ugly part of the seam facing up. When I noticed that, I had a brief moment because, again, sewing is not my favorite craft. I am willing to do it for the result, but I don't consider myself a seamstress at all. And when I saw that, I had a brief moment where I thought to myself, do I want to fix this? Am I going to fix this? Should I fix this? It's the back. How often am I going to be looking at the back of this project bag? And then I thought to myself, okay, let's just think for a moment. You still have time. Let's go have a slice of pie, reconvene, and kind of see what we can do about this. And then I came up with the idea to make a little bit of bias band and make it in the fabric that matches the top of this bag, and just it's also a type of fabric, I think it's a proper like quilting cotton, so it's very nice, it's very easy to iron as well, so it was quite easy to make some bias binding with it. So I did that and I just basically stitched it all the way around the bag, and now you can no longer see that the wrong side is facing up on this side. I had a small moment when I was going to start sewing this binding on there because I almost didn't change the thread color with which I was sewing, and I was sewing with a white thread. And I had a little moment where when I caught myself being unwilling to change that thread, I was like, well, you went through the trouble of making bias binding to fix this mistake. You're willing to take the trouble to sew it on there. What do you mean you're not willing to change the color of the thread you're sewing with? Because luckily I did change it, and now it is this lovely orange color that matches the color of the fabric lovely. I'm really glad that I did that because I think it really adds, it doesn't necessarily add, it's just that if I would have used white, it would have taken away from how nice this looks as a solution, I think. But using the orange for this, I think, and it was good to kind of check in with myself, see how I was feeling, see if I needed a break, because that's one of the things I tend to not like about sewing, is I get kind of lost in the process and then I just keep doing it. My back starts hurting, I start getting thirsty, and I just don't listen to myself and my body at all. So being faced with a moment where I was definitely trying to make a kind of decision that would take away from the overall quality of the product, and just kind of reconvening, checking in with myself, seeing what I actually needed in that moment, that was good. And if I would be able to do that more often, I think I would maybe enjoy sewing a bit more, but we'll see. I also made these little charms for them. I think they're really cute. I think they match the vibe of this bag. And now for what's in there, you've already been seeing little fuzzy sneak peeks. It is indeed my attempt at the best vest by James & Watts. Let's quickly look at this example picture here. His is definitely designed and made with a lot of positive ease in mind. I do want some positive ease, but maybe not as much as his, because I think that would make it look very boxy, which is fine. I think if I make it too boxy, I will be a little bit just like less enthused to wear it. So again, I decided to knit this in a small. Again, I am knitting it where the inside is the knit stitches and the outside has the purl stitches. That just works the best for me. I will not actually flip it inside out. I'm too scared it's going to slip off the needle. So I will show you the colors here a little bit. These are partially all the little mohair scraps I have been collecting. And this also has that yarn that I have been dyeing myself. The yarn base for that, I actually finally remembered to grab one of the labels, is Le Petit Lamb's Wool. And let me just see. It is a pure lamb's wool from Scotland. With love, Astrid and Caroline. That sounds really cute. It is 248 meters, and this one originally was in the color white. Currently it is no longer white. I was feeling a little bit insecure about the way I was combining the colors. I first started knitting over here with the more yellowy color that I dyed, and at first I started using the pickle juice glow hair color with this. I actually didn't enjoy that much, so I switched it to this one that has the mohair that has pink in it as well. And now I'm just doing the majority of the body with just pinks and purples. And my plan is to do all the other ribbing with this same color combination as well. And we'll see how it goes. I think for me, the reason why I've been feeling a little bit hesitant to start working with this is because I don't know, I'm both a perfectionist and I also am not a perfectionist, because I'm fine with like the little mistakes of the little holes under the arms in the ballet cardigan. I'm fine with my socks fitting kind of funky. I'm fine with like a little things that are messed up, like the way I absolutely demolished the sewing on this bag. But then with other things where I feel like I've had a heavier hand in how a project came to be, like in this case, me hand dyeing some of the yarn, I tend to all of a sudden become very critical. And I think I was just a little bit worried about me not liking and not enjoying the way the colors, how I dyed them, how they were all going to mix together and how they were going to influence the project and how I was combining the colors. So I've been feeling a little bit hesitant with starting this project and actually making this project. I do think that I am starting to enjoy it. I think I feel just like the most unsure about this part. I think I feel kind of fine about this part, but this part, I don't know. I think it's going to be a trust the process kind of knit for me. I think the best thing I can do at this point, because I also have no other plans where I envision using any of that yarn. So I think I should just continue working on it. I think I should just finish it. Also, I'm not entirely sure how comfortable, well, this was not meant to be like a next to skin knit, but I am like, as I'm knitting with it as well and as I'm feeling it on my skin, I'm just kind of unsure about how much I'm going to be okay wearing this with all the mohair that's in there. Also, the Le Petit Lamb's wool is also a kind of more rustic yarn, which lends itself well, in my opinion, to hand dyeing it. But I don't know, I just feel kind of unsure about it. But I think I'm just going to persevere, finish it, and we'll see how I feel then. Alright, now for my pièce de résistance, I guess? I don't know, in terms of sewing at least. Also kind of what's in there to me was very exciting. I love pink, I love holographic things. This one was not as much of a beast to sew as that one that had the tulle, but still using this for the edging. Just, I think this is a lame type fabric. It's horrific to sew with. It stretches in weird ways. It doesn't want to be ironed at all. I did not enjoy sewing with it. This was actually a little bit less bad. I thought it was going to be worse, but it was actually kind of fine. It still has a little bit of a weird stretch to it, but I kind of compensated for that by using the interfacing fabric. And then it has a lovely purple gingham on the inside. Let me show you the glittering fabric a bit more. And the little kitty charms I made for them as well. Very cute, very nice. I really like them. I love having this in my collection. I'm so glad I made it. I should maybe, I don't know. I think now that I have 6 project bags and I originally said I only wanted to have 5, if I want to make more, I think I should consider donating one of the ones I have already made to one of my friends that enjoys sewing or knitting. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how excited I am to sew again after this little debacle. I sewed them all yesterday, and I can only do sewing in little spurts, and then I get fed up with it, and then I need to not engage with it for a little bit. But I'm very happy with this result. This is very exciting to me. What is inside of here is also really exciting to me, because I kept telling you that I can't find my whip of the Librarian Vest. Guess what I found when I was digging around for fabric scraps. Not yarn scraps, fabric scraps. This had been hiding in one of my fabric bins. It was the only one I also hadn't completely turned inside out on the hunt for this. So of course it was there. That is always the rule of thumb. I should have known better. It looks lovely. I'm happy that I found it. Now that I'm looking at it though, I'm worried it's going to be too small. I don't know. With the size needles, I think this is pretty close to a 2.5, maybe a little bit bigger than that. I counted the stitches. This is the amount of stitches I would cast on for that needle size. It does stretch out quite a bit. I'm feeling a little unsure about it. I should try and measure it a bit. The stitch pattern is it's so darling. I'm so proud of myself that I already figured out how to do this 2 years ago when I was still very much more in the beginning stages of my knitting. I think before I start actively knitting on this again, I need to measure it. I need to maybe put some barber cord on here and actually try it on. The thought of doing something like that always terrifies me though. But spending like 40 hours more knitting this and then it not fitting also terrifies me. So I don't know, pick your poison, I guess. I think in general, even if I have to frog it, I think in general, even if I have to end up frogging this, it still feels like a victory because I finally found it. It would be really nice if it does actually end up fitting, but like I said, I don't know, I also have no idea what size needle I used for the ribbing, so that's exciting, I guess. This is basically one big mystery to me, besides finally having found it. I found another ball of the yarn as well. Apparently I thought I would need a lot of yarn for this. I think this is one ball of yarn that is currently in here, so we'll see. I don't know, I have to brainstorm a little bit on this, see if I can measure it a bit, see how I feel about it, and then I'll decide if I'll frog it or if I'll continue with it. I am, on the one hand, very happy that I found it, but on the other hand, almost a little bit sad as well, because I did originally, the idea I told you about last week, where I figured I would do ribbing in a color like this, the body in this green, and then more ribbing in a color like this. I actually really like that idea. That doesn't mean I can't ever execute that idea, but I can't do it in this one, because I think it would be nicest to do something like this. Like, of course, I haven't knitted the neck or armhole ribbing, but doing something like that would be nicest if it is also in the bottom ribbing. So we'll see. I feel unsure about all aspects of this. I'm glad to have found it though, and I will try and decide what to do with it in the oncoming week. So now for knitting plans. First of all, I think I have kind of too much going on right now, so I will not be casting on anything in the next week. Hopefully. No promises. I am of course still thinking about future projects. So now that I know for sure that I indeed have a full skein left of this Life in the Long Grass DK weight, I even have a little bit more. This was what I had left after I had finished both of the sleeves. When I was editing last week's podcast episode and I saw that other yarn that I was thinking about using for the Oslo Hat together on the screen with this yarn, and I was talking about how they had a similar level of saturation, I actually started thinking about how I could, instead of buying 2 of those Life in the Long Grass DK weight in the color Fizz, I could actually maybe just buy 1 and then combine it with this one, because as I said, I have no current plans for using this, and buying 2 of those others and then hoping that I would have more scraps and then figuring out something to do with this felt maybe a bit greedy. Also, I got a lot of yarn last month, so I should maybe slow down a little bit. So maybe that is actually the best thing I could do for my Oslo Hat, combining this with the Fizz and seeing how far I get with that. I also have this to supplement it with, and see if that works out. Instead of buying 2, I would only get 1. So maybe that's what I'll do, but I'm still thinking about it. I think I will maybe order that in the oncoming week, if that is actually what I want to do. And if I'm going to be ordering that, I will also definitely order this lovely king fiber color in foxglove, because I didn't talk about it last week, but I'm still very committed to that idea of knitting the Event Horizon cowl. I have this much left. I really didn't use that much of that slime green color from Undercover Otter, so I can definitely use that, and I can't wait to start knitting on that. Ideally, I will finish at least 1 or 2 other projects before I cast on either the hat or the cowl, but I am starting to get more enamored with the idea of doing that. So the things I'm hoping to finish in the next week are, I think, the best vest. I think that's a reasonable idea to think that I will have finished that by then, finished or very close to finishing. And the other pair of Ruffle Socks. I think that's kind of what I'm aiming for, and that I think will be reasonable. And I would like to just continue knitting on the capelet. No intention of trying to finish that in a week as well with these other things. So that's kind of all my plans, my hopes, my dreams. I'm very excited about all of it. I've been having a lot of fun with all my knitting stuff. I didn't enjoy sewing the project bags, but I'm happy to have them right now. So yeah, that's been wonderful. Quickly, what I'm wearing today, actually I have made none of it, unfortunately, besides some of the necklaces that I'm wearing, but I don't really feel like getting too deep into that. This vest top I have not made myself. I think I got it secondhand on Vinted at some point. It was really cheap. I really love it. It's 100% wool. It's this lovely color work all around. It has inspired me to try and think about making something similar myself at some point. I'll be doing that, and I'll be getting into that at some point. I have drawn up this whole idea that I have with using the Pacific Knit Co. doodle patterns. I'm not currently ready to seriously start thinking about that though. That's a later, longer down the line project for me. The dress, I don't remember the brand of Edited or something like that, but I really like the puffy sleeves, and I think it's nice to wear something more tightly fitted over top of it. So today, unfortunately, nothing homemade, but maybe I'll put on some lovely hand-knitted socks later. Alright, now for this new channel tradition that I have been really enjoying. I don't think she has been enjoying it that much, but I'm lucky that usually when I film these it is morning and she's doing her little morning naps. So she is nice and sleepy and approachable. I swear she loves me, and only me apparently, and also me just on a good day and a good moment, which is fine. That is the pleasures of owning a cat. So without further ado, me and Bertje will be sounding off, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!